and wait for a few people to jump in here. What am I going live about? I'm going live to let you guys know that I'll be switching out my first oil filter ever since I switched over to Valvoline Restore Protect. This is going to be an early oil filter replacement because Valvoline Restore Protect, they recommend that you switch out your oil filter early prior to your oil change. So I'm about maybe 1,000 miles in, so I want to make sure that I get that oil filter out to get all that sludge out, get that comes out of the engine early, get it out. You get it out too, buddy. My dogs are here coughing up fur ball or something. So right now, me and my dog are heading over to the park. Today is Saturday. It's around 12:48, about 73 degrees. So it's a nice day out. Everybody's out riding their bikes and having some fun. So I figured I'd take the dog to the park first, and then I'll head on home and drop the oil filter. And you guys are also going to see in that video that I'm going to make of changing out the oil filter, I'm going to use a method that people say doesn't work. I tried it before and it does work. And the method I'm speaking of is you poke a hole in the oil filter, let it drain, and then remove the oil filter. Plus, I'll also be switching out the oil filter using a different tool. Now this tool, what it does is it grabs onto the bottom of the oil filter. At the same time, it creates pressure whenever you torque on it. So I'm going to check and see if it actually works. I got it off of Amazon for a few bucks. And you never know if these things will work. Might make it easier. So stick around and find out. So I'm going to go ahead and start the live video right now. If you guys are just joining me right now, I'm going to be posting a video of me changing out the oil filter on a 2002 Chevy Silverado 1500 5.3 liter V8 Z71 4x4 extended cab LT edition with 288,800 miles on it. I recently switched over to Valvoline Restore and Protect, and prior to that I was going to one of those quick stop oil change places and using their oil. And Valvoline Restore and Protect recommends that you switch out your oil filter early prior to your oil change because of all the buildup that'll go into the oil filter, because it removes a lot of sludge deposits. I say deposits like I know what it means, but deposits, So anyways, whenever I do take the oil filter out, I will also be cutting it open and looking at the media to see if there's any type of sludge or metal particles that we'll be able to see. And so we'll inspect that as well, and we'll switch that out. And as far as an update and some of the things to take into consideration. So the reason why I switch over to Valvoline Restore and Protect is because it's supposed to remove sludge and reduce oil consumption. My truck would normally eat up about a quart of oil every 3,000 miles. It's a Silverado, so it and also it doesn't leak. So keep that in mind. It doesn't leak, and so it would eat up a quart of oil every 3,000 miles. And what some of the things that I've done is I replaced the valve cover. I updated the valve cover to the newer style. And that one's supposed to reduce the amount of oil that you burn because it reduces the amount of oil that goes back into the system. The old model would actually, I think there was like a hole that would get plugged up or clogged up, and that would allow the oil to be sucked back into the system. Also, at the same time, it would gunk up your intake as well. So I switched that out. Also, prior to the oil change, I also ran a quart of transmission fluid in the system to remove some of the deposits and then clean up the motor as well, because I guess that's an old farmer's trick, is you run a quart of transmission fluid in with your regular oil, and that's how you keep your engines going for a long time, because transmission fluid, I guess, has more detergents, so it starts cleaning things up. And it actually works, because I had like engine, maybe it was a valve ticking, a lifter ticking, and I put a quart of transmission fluid in the engine to try and clean that up, and it worked. It actually got rid of that tick in the morning, so it reduced the noise on the engine in the mornings. So if you have a lifter tick, try running transmission fluid in your motor, a quart per oil change, and that might get rid of the tick. You all right there, bud? Have another cigarette. And another thing, whenever I replaced, I was trying to get the valve lifters to get cleaned up a little bit. So I had the valve cover off, so I went ahead and I got some carburetor cleaner. I forgot the name of it. You'll see it in one of my videos, or I'll mention it down below. But I went ahead and sprayed it down each one of the tubes that the valve lifters go through, and to try to get that all cleared out. Are you all right, bud? You need some water? And so the engine, prior to changing the oil to Valvoline Restore and Protect, it had some transmission fluid in there. It had that carb cleaner in there. And I also drove the engine for maybe 15 minutes with all that in there. So I can imagine that did a lot of cleaning on its own. So I'm really curious to see what's going to be in the oil filter whenever I get it out of there, and see what comes out of it. I did try to do like the borescope camera in the motor, and I put it in through the oil filling side of it, and I looked in there and it looked really clean. So I was going to do like a visual comparison of what you might see as improvements with the borescope, but honestly, I think the engine's doing pretty well, so there isn't going to be very much to see. The only way that we're going to see improvements or see what type of protection this new oil creates is I'm going to go ahead and send in an oil sample to get tested whenever we do the oil change here in a couple of months, or in about a month maybe. So I'm going to send that in, and I'm going to go ahead and post the results and go over each one of the line items and explain to you what the different measurements indicate, and each one of those different metals, where they're coming from in the engine, so that way we can all learn a little bit more about what these oil tests, what they can tell you about your engine. And they're pretty interesting. They'll tell you, if there's like a certain type of metal that's, like, let's just say in the on the sleeves, one of the rings, if it's breaking down, or if there's a lot of it coming in through, then then it's worn down, and maybe that's going to fail. So it actually tells you what might be failing in your engine soon. So I'm going to head on down to the park, take this guy for a couple of miles to tire him out, and then head back to the garage, and we're going to go ahead and remove the oil filter, cut it open, inspect the media, and see what kind of what we end up getting in the oil filter after the first oil change with Valvoline Restore and Protect. All right, you guys, I'll be posting that video tomorrow. I'm going to go ahead and get this guy on a 2 or 3 mile hike, get him worn out, and I'll check back in with you guys soon. Now to figure out how to turn this off.